Proszę, mamy pytanie? Yeah, you have a question.
Hola, Carlos, from Mexico. Yeah, actually, two questions. The first one, could you tell us a little bit about your next project? What are you working on? And the second one, as a filmmaker, what is the best satisfaction that you can get apart of the money? Thanks.
Yeah, that's an important satisfaction of which I cannot tell you much, unfortunately. The first question is I cannot answer you just because I don't have any projects, but not because I don't want to make more films. I'm sure I will, but I really acknowledge that I'm changing all the time. So very often it happens that I have this idea of a film which will be about this or that, and then time moves on and I don't feel like doing that, and something else comes. So now I have to keep on working and make another film. I need to live my ordinary life as much as possible now and see what I feel like and then do it. I don't have like this sort of agenda of project that I would like to make. Like for example a war film that I've always thought I wanted to make. Every time the time comes I never feel like making it, so I probably never will. So that really depends on what I'm going through. I think it's very important to live ordinary life. There's some great film directors that I like, and then eventually they start making too many films and too often, and I wonder and I ask myself, when will they have some time to live? Of course, when you are filming, you are also living to a certain extent, but at least me, I need to travel, I need to forget film and just go out to the park and things like this. So I don't know about that. We'll see. And then the greatest satisfaction for me, it's very clear. It's to be able to complete the circle of the whole thing. That is, why do I make a film? Basically, I do it to share what I feel. In exactly the same way as I would tell you, like, look at that beautiful landscape or something like that, or that horrible landscape as well. And then the moment there's contact with the other one that sees it, and of course even if he doesn't like it, there's contact, and that's also good. But the greatest achievement comes when there's a total mirror reflection and the other one can keep part of the film, or maybe the whole film in his life, maybe forever, maybe a little bit of his life will have the film forever. That is for me what matters. It's not at all about entertaining. I really don't consider myself a circus director or a master of ceremonies or a clown. I'm not at all wanting to entertain people for 2 hours and get a lot of money back. It's really not my job at all. My job is to share with people what I have inside. So some people have said to me, for example, in the last film, that they were disappointed that I was taking them into this beautiful world, and then they felt like children who had been abandoned in the middle of the forest by their father, and then something horrible happens. You know, someone said this to me, and I was thinking, like, that's your problem. Why do you feel that way? I'm not pushing on buttons on you so you feel this and that, as if I was selling BMWs or was making entertainment films. It's more like I'm opening a door in my head or in my soul so you can look into it, and it comes out. And then, so when people ask me, what does the devil mean? I don't know, imagine you saw the dream I had last night, and I dreamed that devil, you know, that's all. Of course, we can do some psychoanalysis in that, and that can be interesting maybe, and some people will come out with wonderful ideas, and probably I'll think, yes, maybe he's totally right. I don't know if you've ever been to psychological therapy, but this can happen. Like, they can, at a certain point, someone could even tell you why you have long hair, and then maybe give you an idea, and then you probably think, and you look back and you think, yes, maybe that's totally true. I've never thought of that. For me, intuition is always before reason when I'm making something. Very much like loving someone, you know, like kissing somebody. You do it out of intuition, and reason is behind. For sure, you love that. For sure, you love the person you're kissing or whatever. But it's an intuitive act first. If it's a powerful act, it has to be intuitive. So no need to check back with reason if things are there. If intuition is there and you feel it powerfully, that means intuition has reason behind, because they come together. But if you put reason before, then everything will be mechanical in the end. But I have to say one last thing about that. if sometimes I try to think of something, if I get the feeling that it might not work, I can check with reason and see how it goes, and then some reason can come to it and make the whole thing clear or unclear, and then you can see if you're going on the right direction or not. And like now and after a film, when you are doing interviews and when we're sharing all this, it's a lot about intellectualization and rationalization of something, which I can assure you was really intuitive and not reasonable before I made it, or while I made it even.
Mam takie krótkie pytanie, bo w Pana wypowiedziach często pojawia się przeciwstawienie monoteistycznej wiary cywilizacji Zachodu z duchowością, a jednocześnie w samych filmach ta monoteistyczna wiara często jest zespojona z duchowością i to mi się tutaj, znaczy czasem po prostu nie zgadza mi się to z wypowiedzi, nie zgadzają mi się trochę z tym, co Pan pokazuje w filmie, nie wiem. Mam wrażenie, że jakby często stara się Pan strasznie rozgraniczyć między tym, co jest wiarą taką monoteistyczną, a duchowością. I no nie wiem, to nie jest pytanie, to jest taka w zasadzie opinia.
Yes, but maybe why you don't understand is because you are mixing levels, I think. You are mixing the sociological level with the philosophical level. When I talk about that monotheism and all that can start to get a little boring. I'm talking about the sociological level. Monotheism, and particularly Christianism, has a wonderful and amazing level of mysticism and spirituality too, I think. Totally amazing, but that's only at the philosophical or spiritual level, if you want. At the social level, which becomes a political level eventually, I think that basically what monotheism has done, basically, if you look back, is to become institutionalized after a while, and then because it detaches you from the world, and you can read in any basic philosophy, because you start judging the world from outside, that means from within, from yourself, you detach yourself from the world. Eventually, you start judging, you feel alone. And just to prove that this is right I mean, we of course could talk a lot longer and maybe read books and discuss other things. You can just look at the history of the sociological and political history of monotheism. Don't confuse it with the philosophical aspects of it, or even artistic. What has monotheism done when it came to Europe first? Well, after it institutionalized itself, it started destroying the cultures of Europe. That's why when some people like Americans like me, I mean from the American continent, complain about the conquest of the Americas and the destruction of the American cultures as if it was the guilt of the Europeans, it's not, you cannot really blame, for example, the Spaniards, because the poor Spaniards were destroyed first themselves by this monotheism. They were Ostrogoths, and they were Celts, and they were Iberos, and many other groups that had their own language, their own food, their own dances, their own stories, their own ways to approach woods and sacred elements of life, and they were destroyed, technically destroyed. And eventually, when all this destruction came and uniformization of Europe was conformed, they went outside and they destroyed cultures all over the world where they could. They didn't get to Central Mongolia, for example, but they destroyed mostly all of America, all of the Arab world, all of Africa. You know how this man talks to the persons that work with him and how he goes to the Alcoholic Anonymous reunion, and he's a kind person, for sure. Like most Westerners are, kind and he understands. But he's a little bit high above the rest, and that doesn't quite kind of work in the end. And this is probably what happens also in worldwide. Why are we not in total peace when we have such power and such economy and such technology? It should be time that we should all be in peace, but we aren't at all. So what is it? Some people think it's human nature, maybe. but maybe it's the system. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not an anthropologist. Maybe if I was, I would be wrong also. I don't know. I just suspect all this.
Trochę kontynuując ten wątek, chciałem zapytać się o to, co Pan powiedział wcześniej o duchowej rozpaczy, że właściwie to jest coś, co wyróżnia bohaterów, zwłaszcza Pana ostatniego filmu. Czy z bohaterami trochę nie jest tak jak z Panem, który mówił wiele lat temu, pamiętam w jednym z wywiadów, bardzo chciałem być ateistą, ale mi się nie udało. Chodzi mi o to, że jakby przekonanie, że można żyć bez transcendencji, no, okazuje się największym złudzeniem, nawet dla tych, którym się wydaje, że jest to właśnie droga do życia bardzo bezpiecznego. Czy to nie jest też jakiś klucz do tych bohaterów właśnie na granicy duchowej rozpaczy, czyli jakieś pustki, jakiejś potrzeby niespełnionej?
Yes, yes. When I talk about this spiritual emptiness or spiritual despair, basically, I'm sorry. I hope you don't get annoyed or bored that I keep on talking about these things that are so far away from cinema. But well, nevertheless, it's all in the films too. So well, I will just very briefly try to say what I think. What I think is that when this, well, this is very important, and it is in all my films, so it is connected to my cinema because I'm from Mexico. So basically what has happened is that there was this culture there for thousands of years, and they had their own system and their own lives, and they were very much connected to life. Even though, because there weren't big mammals, they did some wars to get some humans to eat. And they also sacrificed people, which for the Spaniards when they got to Mexico was like horrible. But it's a bit more complicated than that. But well, whatever. They were living there, and then this European invasion came, and they were devastated, destroyed, to a point that we really cannot figure out or imagine or visualize the suffering and this devastation that came to these cultures. And eventually, the father withdrew to a certain extent after 300 years, but some of his sons that were more white remained there, and they kept on giving a hard time to those devastated sons and devastated mothers. So everything became like a bastardic culture where references weren't clear, and this is what is going on till today. So all those references that are not there, nevertheless manage to remain to a certain extent, so culture or people could continue living a more or less good life, more or less. But lately, in the last 20 years, with the total triumph of the consumerist capitalism of the world, not industrial capitalism of before, but the consumering capitalism of today, leaves people really without any sort of protection, because people want by all means to have money, and therefore they invest their whole lives to an unlimited extent for that reason. And people think we live better because there are, yes, many more supermarkets and many more tennis shoes and cars and things like this. So it seems like, and even credit cards. So people seem to be better off, and materially they are by far. But everything else is collapsing somehow, and people are feeling really, it's like all those 500 years of colonization, 300 of colonization and 200 of post-colonization are now really quickly accelerating, and everything that has been wrongly done is now coming to a crisis, to a terrible crisis. And this is what I think is happening. So this last film is very much about that too, at a certain level, almost like a hidden level, but it is there.